Hello and welcome, dear students. Let's start with our session 3 for history, lesson number 2, New Kings and Kingdoms. So, till now, we have discussed about the Chalukyas who ruled in Gujarat, Karnataka, the Gadwals of Uttar Pradesh. We discussed about the tripartite struggle which took place in Kannauj, or for Kannauj, we can say, where Palas from Bihar, Rashtrakutas from the Deccan, yes, and Gurjara Pratiharas from Rajasthan were fighting together. So different kinds of dynasties were emerging, new kingdoms were emerging in our subcontinent. So till now we discussed about the northern part, the western part, the central part of India. So now we are going to focus more on the southern part of India where we have an important kingdom which was established, and henceforth in the next two sessions we are going to deal with that particular dynasty in detail. So let's begin. So a closer look about the Cholas. Now the important kingdom that was established or becoming powerful in the southern part was the Chola. If you just look at the map which is shown here, we can see the Cholas has had almost captured the southern part of the subcontinent, and they were moving towards the eastern part to expand their kingdom. Now let's take a look about what happened and how the Cholas started establishing their rule. So the topic we have is from Urayur to Thanjavur. The Cholas and the Muttarayars were subordinates to the Pallavas of Kanchipuram. These Muttarayars held power in the Kaveri Delta. So these were the powerful Samans in the Kaveri Delta. Whereas Vijayalaya, who was from a chiefly family of Cholas from Urayur, captured the Kaveri Delta region from the Muttarayars in the middle of the 19th century. So we can say that Vijayalaya was the founder of the Chola dynasty. It is also believed that Vijayalaya built the town of Thanjavur and also a temple of goddess Nishumbha Sudhini in the same town. Then the Pandyan and the Pallavan territories were also made a part of his kingdom. So later he consolidated those two territories which were under the Pandya dynasty and the Pallavas, and that was also a part of the Chola kingdom now. Let's see what is the name or what are the names of the different rulers of the Chola dynasty, maybe some important ones. So here we have the founder of our Chola dynasty, and he is Vijayalaya. Then he was succeeded by Aditya I, followed by Parantaka I, Arinjaya. Then we have Parantaka II. Then Aditya II, followed by Uttam. And then come the two important Chola rulers who ruled for many years and were very powerful. So it is Raja Raja Chola and Rajendra Chola. So today in this session and in this chapter, we are going to learn more about Rajendra Chola and Raja Raja Chola. Let's deal more and discuss more about Raja Raja Chola, or he was also known as Raja Raja I. Now Raja Raja I was the most powerful ruler of the Chola dynasty. He became the king in 1985 and expanded the kingdom in most of the regions. The whole Chola territory was called Chola Mandalam, and the name Coromandel Coast is derived from this word Cholamandalam. He was not only a great conqueror, but also a capable administrator and a patron of arts and literature. So, different kinds of arts and literature also flourished during the rule of Raja Raja I. Next, we have his son Rajendra Chola, who was also equally powerful like Raja Raja I and continued Raja Raja I's policies and raided the Ganga Valley, Sri Lanka, and countries to the Southeast Asia for developing a navy for these expeditions. So he also developed a good naval base for these expeditions. He was an able administrator and a patron of arts and literature like his father. And then to mark his victory, he assumed the title of Gangai Konda Chola, which means the Chola who conquered the Ganga or the kingdoms near Ganga and also built a new capital city which was named as Gangai Konda Cholapuram. He has also built many canals, lakes so that the farmers have water for their fields. And the trade with Southeast Asia made the Chola Empire very prosperous. So his reign is described as the golden age of the Cholas. So Raja Raja I and Rajendra Chola both have given 100% from their side to build up the Chola Empire. And more about them, we can say they constructed marvelous sculptures and architectural pieces during their reign. So let's see more about it. The splendid temples and the bronze sculptures. The Chola kingdom or the reign when the different Chola kings were ruling has witnessed beautiful temples and beautiful bronze sculptures as well. So the Cholas were well known for their temple construction as well as the sculptures or statues which were made out of bronze. And a specific technique was used to make this sculpture. Now here is one of the important temples, the temple of Brihadishwara, which is at Thanjavur and was constructed by Raja Raja I. He also called it Rajarajeshwaram, which means temple of the god of Rajaraja. So the temple has a god which was worshipped by Rajaraja, and so it is said as the temple is also known as Rajarajeshwaram. And the next temple which is very important during the Chola period is the temple of Brihadiswara only, and it is situated at Gangaikonda Cholapuram, which was constructed by Rajendra Chola. And it is also believed that after having control over the Ganga Valley, he has actually brought the waters from the Ganga River into the sacred temple area. It's just a belief. We may or may not believe on this fact, but it is said and it is believed by the people. Next, we have like both these temples are actually beautiful pieces of architecture and sculptures. Generally, these temples, which were constructed during the medieval period or during the Cholas, were often the nuclei of settlements which grew around them. And why was that so? Can you just think about some reasons for it? Why the temple was called as the nuclei of settlements? So here are the reasons for you. These were actually the centers of craft production. People from all around could come for employment and also settled near the temples. For example, the priests, garland makers, cooks, sweepers, dancers, musicians, etc. They started making their settlements around the temple. As we know that temple was a place to worship, so many people would come there to worship the god, And they need everything. They need the flowers, right? The temple should be kept clean, so there were sweepers and whatnot. So many people got employment over there. And yes, it was the main center for the crafts production. As I said, different kinds of bronze sculptures was one of the unique feature of the Chola dynasty. Even these days, when you visit the temples, we find so many settlements around the temple and even many shops around the temple which actually sell things required to worship, or maybe you take things from there as a memory that you have visited that place. So, similarly, in those days also, it provided a lot of employment opportunities for the people. Sometimes the rulers gave land to construct the temples, and whatever agricultural produce was there towards the side of the temple, that all went for maintaining and survival of the workers at the temple. Maybe some land was kept for agricultural produce or agricultural yield, and in a part the temple was constructed. So the people who used to work in that agricultural field would give whatever yield is grown was supplied to the workers as their food source. And then these temples just did not remain the places of worship, but they started becoming economic, social, and cultural hubs. We all know that when people from different areas start coming to different places, they actually purchase the crafts which are important over there, or maybe garlands for offering to the gods, and then they pay money in return. So the economy of that place also starts increasing. Social and cultural hubs, we can say people from different areas, different beliefs come together and there is exchange of their thoughts. And so we say it was a social and cultural hub as well. So let's talk more about the bronze sculptures which were very famous during the Chola Empire or the Chola dynasty. It was a unique technique that these people used to make the sculptures. Among the crafts that were associated with the temples, as discussed earlier, the important one was making images of bronze. And the Chola bronze images were considered among the finest in the world and they were famous all around the world. Now, the technique that was used to make these sculptures was known as the wax technique. And nowadays, we don't find any of these wax techniques which are used because we have so many different kinds of machineries available. So, it is also known as the lost wax technique. So, what was it actually? As we all know that wax could be molded into different shapes. Similarly, the people over there used to make certain idols or sculptures or statue using wax. After the statue was ready, they would give the fine detailing about the eyes and different body parts, or maybe the jewelry and the ornaments. It was not so fine, but yes, they did it. And once that wax statue was ready, it was coated with clay. And afterwards, the clay was heated. Once the clay was heated, the wax was becoming loose and then a clay mold was ready. Once the clay mold was ready with the people, they poured molten bronze into it, and maybe after weeks or many days, maybe a month, when that molten bronze solidifies, they will break away the clay, which is the mold, you can say. The clay would be removed off, and then polishing of that metal, giving fine details or removing the scratches which were there, all these things were done very perfectly and very minutely. So this was the wax technique. A beautiful video related to this wax technique will be posted in your teams section. I hope whatever we discussed today, whatever I have told you today is clear to you. If not, Do note it down and ask me during our sessions. Thank you, dear students. Take care of yourself. Have a nice day. And yes, stay at home. Stay safe.